Hi, my name is Mark Peach. I've edited a book of essays, poetry, and a full-length play with an extended bibliography called Being Colored. It will be in the bookshops from around about the end of November 2011 and certainly in December. The book is a collection of essays by a number of notable people: Max Du Preez, Jonathan Jansen, Peter Hendrikse, Alex Laguma, among a number of others, that really explore the question of what it means to be colored in South Africa. Now, for those not from South Africa, of course, colored refers to biracial, multiracial people, mixed people, if you will. And it's, of course, some of the issues addressed in the book are universal, but this book is particularly from a South African point of view. The question of what it means to be colored it's an emotionally laden thing. It's a very difficult thing. There are no easy answers. And the collection of essays, poetry, and the play don't try to provide glib answers. Rather, what we want to do is to highlight the questions, the contradictions, the complexities. If we really understand the issues, in my mind, we can do a lot better to resolving some of them and to possibly coming out to some kind of solution. And of course, the solution in South Africa is non-racialism. But we are so entrenched in questions of race that, of course, this is not quite as easy as it sounds. I thought I'd read you one or two excerpts from the book just to give you a sense of what it's about. I'm going to read initially from the introduction, and it goes like this. In the mid-1970s, my family and I returned to Durban from a 7-year stay in Swaziland. Naturally, finding and placing my siblings and I in school was highest priority for my parents. However, somewhere along the way, my identity documents, which were necessary for school admission, had gone missing. My mother got hold of an application form for a duplicate birth certificate, but before she filled it in and sent it off, she called me into her bedroom one day. She handed me the form and then tried to explain things to me. My lost certificate had me down as white, she said. But I was brown and had distinctly unwhite hair. That mattered, she explained, because it mattered to others, and they would make it their business that it mattered to me. That form, she said, had a number of blocks that needed ticking off. One series of blocks asked for race. Did I want to tick off the white block or the colored one? I remember looking at the form and wondering where all this was coming from. She explained as best she could what the string of blocks on the form meant. I remember how she toiled to explain the unfathomable, what race was. She seemed to have particular difficulty with the colored, other colored, and Cape colored blocks, as I recall. So confusing was the discussion that I remembered only one thing. Colored people were apparently mixed, and everyone else was apparently not. Now, my father was, according to the definitions, a white, as was my stepfather. My mother was mixed. She was the daughter of an Irishman, and her mother, my grandmother, was the daughter of a Scot and a Xhosa lady. To my mind, that made me mixed, and therefore colored. I happily agreed to be ticked off thus, mostly because it meant I could go to Epsom Road Primary, which my brother had attended, and was around the corner, so I would not have to travel far to school. Thinking back, I hardly noticed that she had such difficulty filling in that form, or that she was moved to tears and looked so dubiously at me when I happily agreed to be colored. The enormity of the thing just didn't hit me then. It was only years later that I discovered that her marriage to my father had been annulled by a government official while he dunked a rusk in black coffee. That she had been summoned to the offices of the government to be informed that she was not to return to the marital home if she wanted to keep her children. I'm going to read now from an essay titled, "What is a Colored Really?" that I contributed to the collection. Cooley Roberts, Jimmy Manyi, and Trevor Manuel have drawn the colored identity debate into the open with their recently published views. Respected journalist and writer Max du Preez confessed in an article a few years ago that he does not really know what to make of the bruin mense, the brown people. In The Mind of South Africa, Alistair Sparks acknowledged that coloreds were treated abominably under apartheid. Going back further, Andries Treuricht said that coloreds were the, quote, 12-year-old nephews and nieces of the Afrikaner, unquote, who needed looking after. Marike de Klerk said something similar. Even Madiba has weighed in, apparently. At supper one night, a quite senior African National Congress insider told a group of colored businessmen of the great man's surprise that colored people did not make more of Auchumatu, otherwise known as Harry the Strandloper. Then again, there has been a great deal of exploration regarding colored identity. Ian Golden wrote a book titled Making Race. Richard van der Ross wrote Up from Slavery. And Wilmot James compiled Now That We Are Free. Most recently, Mohammed Adhikari and Dimitri Erasmus have researched and delivered valuable thoughts on the subject of colored identity and history. But what is missing is a discussion about what to make of what we know. For my third reading, I'm going to move on to an essay titled The Fork in the Road, which really explores the curious thing that happened. From 1976 up to 1990, there was a great solidarity between colored folks and what we, I suppose, could call the black Africans in the struggle against apartheid. And then for some reason, from 1990 on, there was a profound schism between them. And this essay tries to explore what were the possible reasons for that schism. It reads as follows. The 1976 uprising may have begun in Soweto, but it swept quickly and powerfully through colored communities, and particularly through schools in the Western Cape. Rory Channing, writing for the Glasgow Herald, was just one of a number of overseas journalists who captured the landscape. In an article headlined Police Battle with Cape Coloreds, written in September 1976, he wrote, police fired shotguns, hurled tear gas, and charged with batons today to beat back crowds of rioting colored youths from the center of Cape Town. He continued, one report, not officially confirmed, said a pupil was killed by a blast of shotgun fire when police opened up to stop pupils from a colored, mixed-race school marching into the center. According to unofficial counts, 4 people have now been killed in Cape Town and its colored townships in the past 2 days. Yet there is this notion that coloreds did not struggle, did not suffer in the struggle. And for some rhyme or reason, that notion has now transpired into this deep schism between the races. My last reading, a very quick one, is from an essay titled Dispossessed. There are dispossessed people everywhere, some whose dispossessions are violent, of land and goods. Others are silent and unnoticed, where people are stripped of their meaning, their being, their identities. They become nothing in their society. Dispossession deepens their marginality and social irrelevance. They were all, after all, already weak. The strong are rarely dispossessed. With marginalization, despondency takes hold until, and eventually, anger takes over. It's a fairly somber read. That doesn't mean that all coloreds are somber and prone to suicide and have no humor. But this book explores the complexities and contradictions, the questions that need to be faced by the third largest group in the country who hold the balance of power in 2 of 9 provinces, and yet who feel marginalized and who feel that they don't belong in South Africa. I hope you pick up your copy, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.